Hi there, I'm Marie Page. I'm a yoga teacher. I run a website called mariepageyoga.com. I'm here to teach you a beginner-friendly yoga class. This is all about stretching and mobilization. Hopefully it will help you ease out a few of those aches and pains and perhaps give you some ideas for how you can go forwards, getting more flexible and just being more at ease with your body and hopefully preventing injury in the future. I've had a lot of back issues over the years and yoga has really helped me through those things. A few things I need to run through with you before I start teaching. You do this at your own risk. Obviously, I can't see you, so I can't see whether you're doing things right or wrong. I've also not undergone any medical assessment of you. So if you have any issues that mean that you perhaps shouldn't be doing yoga, or you ought to check with your doctor first. These may include things like high blood pressure, low blood pressure, heart issues, all manner of other things as well. That is not a conclusive list. Then perhaps you should consider not doing this class or at least checking medical advice first. As a general principle, I say to people not to work through pain. You can go to the point of kind of comfort, dis-ease, uncomfort, but you don't want to be having any sharp pain. You don't want any difficult pain. If that happens to you, come out of the pose immediately and just soften up. Sorry, a little glitch on my computer there. So a few things I wanted to show you first. I use a few props. You don't need to use these. First of all, a yoga mat. If you don't have a yoga mat, you could perhaps try putting a towel on a carpet floor, but you want to make sure that you're not slipping on anything. And I would always recommend working in bare feet. One, you can feel the ground so much better, but two, you're a lot less likely to slip. I use a little, it's just a little foam pad for under my knees. You may have a similar thing from the garden. From when you do gardening, you could use that as well. I also find it quite helpful to slip under my bottom as I sit down. I am also sitting on a yoga block here. Blocks come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. This is a brick, and that's a block. It's a good idea to sit on a block. Now, if you don't have a block, you can sit on a cushion. If you look at where my knees are without the block, they're relatively high. I mean, I can make them go a little bit lower because I'm reasonably flexible. You, particularly if you're sitting up like this, would be wise to find something to sit on, a cushion, a block, rolled up blanket, something like that. And instantly what this does is it means that my hips are higher than my knees. My knees are nice and low. And crucially, my hips are kind of tilting forward slightly, particularly if I'm sitting slightly on the edge of my block. So it's bringing my pelvis forward. And can you see how rather than sitting like this, I'm sitting with my collarbones open, my spine nice and straight, my chin tucked in. So shall we start just trying to sit? Now, I'm sitting cross-legged like this. This is called Sukhasana in Sanskrit, easy pose. This is not an accessible pose for everyone, particularly older. The more tight we get, the more difficult it is for us to sit like this. Our hips can be a problem or our knees can be a problem. Now, I've seen people that have had knee replacements manage to sit really well cross-legged, but that's not the case for everyone. So you may find that you want to sit like this. That may feel super uncomfortable for you. So you may actually want to sit like this, or with your feet in front, or on a lot more blocks, whatever is a comfortable position for you. The other thing you can do, if your knees are quite high, and it's actually quite painful to sit, is you can prop a couple of, using yoga bricks, but you could use cushions underneath your knees, and this immediately takes some of the strain off. I've had issues with this knee in recent months, so I've often been sitting like this because this basic sitting pose for me has ended up being quite tight into this knee. So find yourself a comfortable seated position. Now, of course, you might want to sit in a half lotus position, so with one foot up, and that's a kind of position, or that in full lotus. I'm not going to show it now because I'm not warmed up, but with this foot up here, that's really quite an advanced pose. I don't expect you to be getting into that at all. Just find something comfortable for now. One other prop that might be useful for you is to have a chair handy. I mean a dining table type chair. And that's because when we do balances, it can be really nice to hold onto the chair. Now I'll demonstrate by holding onto this cupboard behind me. And you could use a cupboard or a wall, just something that's nice and solid if your balance isn't 100%. So let's sit and begin our yoga. Yoga is actually not just about the positions that you go into at all. It's very much about the breath and breath control. So with yoga, we tend to breathe in and out through our nose. So the mouth is gently closed and we're normally breathing in and out through the nose. Now that may be quite different to other exercises that you've done. It's particularly different to Pilates, where you tend to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So let's just have a little practice with breathing in and out through the nose. I'm going to carry on talking while you're doing that. So we're thinking about nice, long, easy breaths. In for a count, say 1, 2, 3, 4, little pause, and out, 2, 3, 4. Keep doing that. Now be aware while you're doing that of what you're doing with your hands. I would suggest that you have your hands on your knees, either with the palms down or the palms up. And this is a really nice place to start because it helps to ground us into our practice. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And you notice that I've automatically closed my eyes at this point because I'm wanting to go into myself, to center myself. So when I teach, I have to remember to keep my eyes open because I want to be able to see my students. But for you, feel free to either close your eyes or just have a soft gaze, perhaps looking down at the floor. Obviously, you'll want to look at me from time to time to see what I'm doing. But closing the eyes can work really well. I'm now going to invite you to take your hands and put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And again, breathe in and out nice and gently. And notice how when you breathe in, the belly comes out because it's filling with air. And hopefully you're breathing into your chest as well as your belly, and your chest is raising too. Now focus particularly on the out breath, making sure it's nice and long, at least as long as the in breath. And now take the hands to around your side ribs. And notice how when you inhale, the side ribs come out as well. So you're inhaling and your belly's coming out, your chest is coming up, and your side ribs are coming up, out to the side. So just sit and notice that for a few breaths. And in coming into this focus, we're turning on what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is the part of the body that helps us rest and digest our food, rather than that fight and flee mentality that we often live our lives in because we're always on alert and there's always something to be doing, something to think about. So just the act of breathing helps to calm us and center us. And we'll try and maintain that throughout the class. So let's get to some physical asanas, as we call them. These are just shapes that you make with your body. We're already making a shape in the seated position. But let's start to circle round. So what I'm doing here is I'm hinging around at my hips. And I'm letting my shoulders come into this circling motion as well. I don't mind which direction you start off with. You may want to go in the other direction. Really getting your shoulders in. Now, one of the temptations here is that you start to sort of move your head and shoulders and you're not really moving at the hips. So make sure that you are hinging down from the hips. So if you think about my hips like my elbow, I'm going round and round here rather than going round and round at the toe part. So making sure that we've done both directions. Good. So we're now going to introduce a little move that we call the cat-cow. You can do this seated, standing on all fours. We will do it in a number of places today. So what we will start with is we'll tuck the chin down and we'll arch the back out. So my belly is coming in, my chin is coming down. My hands are going forwards actually. And then we come in the opposite direction. So I'm opening out the collarbone and I'm bending my back a little. I'm going to come to the side so I can show you a little more of how that works from the side. So this is the cat position. It's like an angry cat. And then this is the cow. So this is like my udders coming out. You may want to bring your hands back at this point. And can you see I've got a little arch on my back here. I've got slightly baggy clothes on, so you may not be able to see as well. And I'm opening out my chest and my shoulder blades are coming together. And then coming back, chin tucked in. So let's see how we do with that for a few rounds, and we'll think about the breath as well. So as we open out, let's inhale at this point, because we're opening the chest out, and then as we close down, we exhale. Inhale, as we open out, exhale, as we close down. Inhale, and exhale. Remember to do this through the nose. If you've been practicing yoga before and you use the ujjayi or ocean breath, you can use that at this point. I'll give sort of little pointers like that to experienced practitioners as we go along. If that is all bizarre to you, just ignore it and breathe in and out through the nose. So hopefully you're doing well with that. And you can stop these postures at any point and come back to something previous. So that may be feeling not that nice on your back, so come back to that circling. This is your practice. You don't have to do exactly as I'm doing. All right. So that was the cat-cow. So that's brought a little bit of movement into our hips and into the spine and into the shoulders. Let's think about the neck here and making sure that we're warming that up. So first of all, tuck your chin in, right back. So get yourself a little double chin. And I want you to do these moves very, very slowly. I'd like you to inhale and then exhale and look over your left shoulder. Now make sure that your shoulder blades are going down towards your back pockets. You don't want your shoulders to be up nice and high, you want them nice and low. So I'm looking over to the side wall and I'm feeling a stretch in the opposite side of my neck. Inhale as we turn the head back to the centre. And then exhale to look over the other shoulder. So I'm keeping my chin nice and tucked. I've got a really nice straight spine here. Inhaling and exhaling while we're here, feeling that stretch down the side. One last inhale. Exhale back to the centre. Good. Now we're going to take the chin down to the left shoulder. So when you're ready, inhale. Exhale the chin down. So we're feeling a slightly different stretch here. And it may feel different on different sides. Inhale back to the centre. And then exhale down to the opposite shoulder. Inhale back to the centre. Now we're going to take the chin down to the chest. So inhale and exhale the chin to the chest. And we're just going to let that settle for a bit. Let the head hang heavy. Gravity will do some work here. And bringing the head down a little and stretching out along your cervical vertebrae. Now this may feel tight for some of you. As we age, these discs and the vertebrae, they do degenerate. Mine is certainly a little degenerated in my cervical spine. And that means that this pose can feel a little tight for me to begin with, but just holding here, letting everything relax, all the soft tissue, just relax. It does start to ease off. Now your head's quite heavy, so you may want to just put your hands to your head and gently guide it up again. We do these movements on the neck very, very slowly so that we don't get into any jarring or spasming of the muscles. Good. So let's roll the shoulders. So forwards, up, back and down. So you're creating a circle with the shoulders. Inhaling as they come up to your ears and exhaling as they go down. Inhale up, exhale down. And then we'll do that the other way. You may hear some clicks and cracks in there. That's nothing to be worried about normally. Okay, so let's sit in our position again. Now, if you've been sitting cross-legged for a while, it might be an idea to turn your feet around so that the other foot is in front. We always have a preferred foot to be in front, and it's good to change that around. This time I want you to take your hands out in front of you and then put them on your shoulders. Elbows together, and we circle round and back. And again, the principle of breathing is that as we open the chest, we inhale, and as we close the chest, we exhale. You may even get your back involved in this a little if you want. And then let's work the other way. Now, you may not be able to get your elbows together. It doesn't matter. You go to where you can. We're all different. One last circle. And relaxing again. Good. So I want you to take one hand. I don't mind which hand it is. Bring it up above your head. Inhale. And then drop that hand down to the side. Now, you may want to put that onto a block, or you may be able to go to the floor, and then the other hand, inhale it up, and then exhale it down. So we're now into a side stretch. So hopefully you can see that I am stretching this side of the body. I am not going forward, I'm not flapping back. I've got some weight on this hand, but I'm really carrying quite a lot in this back. I could take this hand off. Don't try that. Okay, let's inhale back up, stretching tall, and bring that hand down. Take that other hand back down again. So you'll start to feel a little stretch even as you do this. Then inhale the other hand up, and exhale it down. So again, making sure that we're not going forwards or back. So your gaze, we call this in Sanskrit your drishti, could be in front of you, or you could be looking up towards the ceiling, kind of past your elbow. Inhale up and down. Now we're going to do that again on each side, just so that we get to understand it. So bringing that first hand down, the other up, inhale up, and exhale down. And we tend to exhale, release into these stretches. Inhale up, and down, inhale up, and exhale down. Good. Inhale up. And there we are. So that's some simple seated warm-ups. You could do quite a lot of this sitting on a chair if you wanted, or you could adapt them a little bit for that. We're now going to come to all fours. So I'd invite you to make your way onto all fours. If you haven't got a nice squishy mat underneath you, then you might want to take a blanket and perhaps roll that up a couple of times so that you can put that under your knees. And we're going to have our knees kind of hip width apart here. And we're going to start by doing some hand and wrist warm-ups, because I mean, a lot of my students actually have got early onset arthritis. I've got a little bit of that myself in my right hand. And I find that before we do anything like a downward dog, we put a lot of pressure onto the wrists. It's good to warm them up. So let's come onto all fours. And I want you to place your hands on the mat in front of you. And what is happening here is that your fingertips are going to be more or less pointing together. Hopefully you can see that. I'll come a little bit closer to the camera so you can see. So my fingertips are like this. My palms are flat on the floor. And like this. And then what we're doing is we're simply going to rock from one side to the other. And your palms are flat, your fingers are flat on the floor. And you may well feel this kind of in the wrists, going up the forearms. You may feel it in the hands. Just bringing a little bit of movement and stretch into these joints. And you may find that this is more painful in one hand than the other. So I've got a little bit of RSI, arthritis, in my right hand. So I always feel this, I'm aware of this in my right hand. I don't think it's ever going to go away, but doing things like this help no end. Okay, so we've done a few of those. We're going to go the other way now. So I'm going to put my wrists not necessarily right together, maybe a few centimetres outside of each other. So the fingers are going to be splayed to the sides, and then again we're going to rock from one side to the other. So I'm lifting my palms up very slightly here. You'll feel the stretch going up the forearms. Okay, the next one is that the hands come further forwards, nice wide fingertips, and lift up so that your weight is on your fingertips. Now my fingers are quite straight here, but I'm taking some of my body weight in my fingertips, and then come back down again. Up onto the fingertips, and down. Up and down. It's quite a subtle move, but it's good for strengthening. It's also good when you come to be doing things like handstands, or a position such as crow, where we're balancing our whole body weight on our hands, and it helps us to develop our balance. Now, I'm not going to be teaching you that today, and I'm sure many of you will never get to those things, that we would have done easily as children, but they're still good exercises to do. Okay, and then finally here, we take the hands under the shoulders. Fingers are coming back towards the toes and the knees. And my palms are flat on the floor, and I'm simply sitting back. I'm not moving here. This is a static stretch. So I'm stretching up these forearms. And this is one of those stretches that I love, but it's actually sort of on the edge of comfort as well. We don't do anything like as much work with our wrists and our arms as we should, really. If you think about kind of manual labour, we've been doing an awful lot more of this, but we've got labour-saving devices now that mean that we don't use our bodies in the way that we were designed to, and this helps address some of that. So hopefully you've felt a little bit stretched there. Now we finish these off by taking, I'm going to come closer so you can see this. You take the forefinger and thumb around the top of the wrist, and then you circle the hands. And then you circle in the other direction. It's very clever, this, the way that, I mean, I can actually get my finger, I've got really tiny wrists, which is quite strange because I'm quite large in many ways, but if you can't get all the way around, it doesn't matter. The point is that switch hands, you just do, get as close as you can and circle around that joint. I learned these warm-ups from the School of Calisthenics. My son does calisthenics, which is all about body weight exercises, and he had a nasty hand wrist injury from teaching himself handstands, and these are his warm-ups. They're very, very useful. Now just splay the fingers out, do whatever you would like to do to bring a little bit more movement to them. Perhaps interlace the fingers, do a sort of snaky move. Stay in all fours, I'm coming back to you. And then shake it out, fingertips out to the side, get a little bit of energy moving here. Good, right, we're back onto all fours. And we're going to do that cat-cow move again, but we're going to do this on all fours. So I want your knees to be under your hips. Knees are hip width apart, not super wide, hip width apart. And your hands are below your shoulders, and your hands are shoulder width or hip width apart. So they should be sort of on train tracks, really. So hopefully you've got that going all right. And we start, we've got a flat neutral back. Can you see, I've not got a bend in my back, it's nice and straight. And we are going to drop the belly down, and the tailbone comes up, as if I've got a tail that's coming up, trying to reach the top of my head. And the top of my head comes up to try and reach my tail. So this is the cow pose. So you can imagine I'm a cow here with my udders below. Okay, so this is where you would inhale, because you've got a nice big belly to open there. And then we curl it in the opposite direction. So the tailbone comes down and your tail is coming between your knees towards your wrists. And your head comes down, you tuck the chin down and back comes really high. So you're like an angry cartoon cat. And this is where you would exhale. So we just move very slowly from one to the other. Now I do find that sometimes people just take a long time to get this. They sort of do this, so they've got their chin tucked but their tail up. So look at what I'm doing. Tailbone up, head up, tailbone tucked, chin tucked. And we move between the two. So inhaling, and then as you come into your cat, you exhale. Inhale, exhale. And hopefully you're sort of feeling this like a sort of wave going down your spine. And hopefully you're loosening yourself up a little as we go. Good. Coming back into your neutral spine, I want you to do a C shape now in the opposite direction. So I'm looking over my left shoulder at my left kind of hip, and just turning my hips to look that way. So C shape there, and then the other direction. So it's like I'm wagging my tail towards my ear in one direction and then the other. So you see we've moved the spine in one direction, and now we're moving it at the diagonal to that. So the 45-degree to that. Hoping my geometry is still okay, it may or may not be. Good. Now that may be feeling like there's quite a lot of weight on your wrists. We'll give you a little break now. I want you to take your knees much wider, and we're going to sit back on our heels. Bottom comes down to the heels. Hands are in front of us, walk them forwards and drop down towards your mat. Now, you may need to put a pillow under your head so you can comfortably rest your head down. It all depends on the degree of flexibility you've got. Others of you will be able to put your head right down on the ground here. And then once you're down as low as you can go, you'll stretch your hands nice and forwards and perhaps come up onto those fingertips. So the elbows are off the ground. So this is a pose called extended child, or Hasta Balasana. It's sort of a resting pose. Child normally would have your hands back towards your feet, your head on the floor, just resting nice and gently here. But I like to work people a bit harder. So I tend to do child with the hands extended. So it's an active resting pose, if that makes sense. And these variations of child are poses that you can come back to time and time again throughout your yoga class. It's all getting too much, come back into child. And it's a signal I give to students to say, you know, if you've had enough of this particular pose, just come back into child, and I'll understand that. It's not a problem at all. And even when I'm taking a yoga class as a student myself, I will often go into child when I've had enough of a pose. I just feel my back needs to relax in this way. So let's do a little twist from child. So coming up slightly, so head slightly up, hands stretched out. So I've got my palms down now. And I'm just going to walk my hands around to one side, keeping my head quite low. And I've gone to the left, so I'm going as if to 9 o'clock on the clock, but if you've gone the other way, it'll be like to 3 o'clock. You may only get to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, but if you can get to 9, that's great. Don't overstretch yourself. And you'll feel, assuming you're in the 9 o'clock position, you'll feel a stretch down the right-hand side of the body. Try and sit as hard back on your heels as you can. Your bottom, you can see I've got a gap between my bum and my heels. It's not a problem. Just try and sit back. And then with the right hand, you may be able to stretch a little bit further forwards, more towards that 9, just to extend the stretch as things settle down. Keep breathing, nice deep breaths in and out through the nose. And when you're ready, come back to the center. I'm just going to turn around. Yes, I'm going to turn around so I can stretch the other way for you. So come back to the center, stretch out. So you would normally have the tops of your feet on the floor, but you might want to just tuck your toes under to give your toes a little bit of a stretch out here. And then this time you're going to go around to the 3 o'clock position. So going in the other direction to stretch out the other side. And again, you may be able to take your left hand a little bit further towards that 3. Lovely stretches. In and out through the nose. Try and stretch on an equal amount of time on each side, and then come back to the center, head to the floor, and let's take a little bit more of a break here. So take your hands to a prayer shape and put them on the top of your neck, on the nape of the neck. Forehead to the ground, hands in prayer position, and breathe in and out nice and gently. When you're ready, come back up into your tabletop position. We're just going to do a couple of little moves here. So I want you to have that more neutral spine, so a nice flat back here. So I'm neither sinking down or coming up. And we're going to take you may want to take the left knee in slightly just to stabilise yourself. Picking the right knee up, and we're just going to circle that leg around. So bringing a little bit of movement into the hip. Now you may have really small circles here, you may have larger circles. You may even be able to take the leg all the way back, bringing it in all the way to the elbow and round, bringing it in towards the nose and round. But you can keep these circles small and then circle in the other direction. Okay, bringing that back down again. I'm not done on this leg yet. We're going to do a lift here. I call this dog wheel up a tree pose. So lifting the knee up, keeping a right angle in the joint at the knee. And we're literally lifting up and down, up and down. So if you've done Pilates, you'll have perhaps done some of these sorts of exercises in Pilates. There's a degree of overlap between yoga and Pilates. So you'll be feeling this in the glutes now, I'd have thought. Okay, have a little bit of a rest. Sit back on your heels again. I'm just going to take one of my layers off. You may well find that you're warming up as you go. Obviously, if you want to take a drink at any point, I'm going to take one just for good practice. Do so. And now we're going to do the other side. So I'm going to turn around just so that you can see the left leg going. So right leg a little bit into the centre perhaps, and then start with some small circles and wider circles as you need. Bringing the knee right forward, maybe taking the leg right back, knee towards the nose perhaps, and then in the opposite direction. And then coming back down, both knees on the floor, and then those leg raises, the lateral leg raises, the left knee coming up, keeping a right angle at the knee. We'll do about the same number as we did on the other side. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. You're probably feeling a little bit of a raised heart rate here. That's good. Okay, coming back into your all fours. Okay, I want to do one little stretch here. So we're back onto the right knee. I want you to take the left foot right back, left toe on the floor, and then lift the left hand up. And we do a nice stretch from the tips of my left hand to the tips of the left foot. So I'm not mirroring you now, assuming you're using your left hand. I'm using my left hand as well. Stretch it, stretch. You may be able to pick up the foot into a balance. Don't worry if you can't. Drop it back down again. And then we'll go the other way. I'm not going to turn around. Right foot comes back, lifting the right hand up, stretching, stretching. So I've got my top shoulder is above the bottom shoulder here. Stretching forward. You could stretch up high if that feels easier for you. If you've got issues with your shoulders, you may want to put your hand behind the back, and then if you want to lift the leg up, you can. So there's lots of different ways to be doing this. So hands up, forwards, behind the back, leg up or down. These moves can be adjusted to your liking. Lovely. So we're going to come now to some standing postures, and we're going to come into standing through a balance. So from your tabletop position, I want you to tuck your toes around and come into a little squat. Now, if you need to hold on to the wall, you can do so. Hopefully, you can squat knees nice and far apart. Can you see how my back is really nice and straight now? What will normally happen when people are doing this is they'll be quite wobbly, they'll be holding on to things, and they'll be leaning forwards. So the first little balance we're going to do here is just a toe hold. And we're sitting, squatting, and remember you can hold on to things if you want to. See how this feels. And if you feel fairly stable here, we're going to come into standing through this really nice and slowly, trying to maintain the same speed. So if your hands are free, as in not holding onto the wall, take them to heart center, to a prayer position. And very, very slowly, we come up, 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 up. Keep the hands coming up. Stretching tall. I'm looking up at my hands, and I've now introduced a little bit of a back bend. My back is now curved backwards. Looking up, don't do this bend if it feels uncomfortable. Inhale and then exhale and bring the hands down to your side. So, some standing postures. The first of which is called mountain pose, Tadasana in Sanskrit. Your feet should be around about hip width apart. Traditional yoga will teach this with the toes together. That's an Ashtanga position. But yoga was traditionally taught to skinny Indian men. I am not a male, and I'm certainly not skinny. So it's more comfortable for me to be hip width apart. And it also gives us a little more stability. So in the West, we often teach this as hip width apart. We will roll the shoulders up and back, so that we've opened the collarbone a little bit. Shoulder blades going down towards the back pockets. I'm tucking my tailbone under. So rather than sticking my bum out, I'm tucking the tailbone under. I'm also tucking my chin under and making sure that my shoulders are away from the ears. The shoulders are the enemies of the ears generally in yoga. And then my hands are so almost like sparks coming out of my hands down the side. Now you can either be like that, or you can have the hands out in front. I do not mind. So this is a Tadasana. So let's just close our eyes. Inhale and exhale. And see how we feel in this pose. Perhaps wriggle your toes a little so that you can make a bit more space for your toes on the mat. You may want to just lean forward slightly and then back. Go from side to side. Just see how your balance is here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come up onto one foot. So you choose which foot. So ground down with that foot by making the toes nice and wide, and then the foot you're lifting, we literally just come up first of all onto our toes. See how that feels? If you need to hold on to something, do so. And then when you're ready, pick that foot off the ground. We're just standing. If you wobble, don't worry, because you'll come back, hopefully, and that's teaching your brain how to stay nice and stable. Now, what you may want to do is take that foot out to the side. So you can keep the toe on the floor if you like, or you can bring that foot to just below the knee, somewhere on the calf. And the knee that's bent is now pointing not completely out to the side, because your hips just don't really work like that, but pointing out towards that side. So we're now in tree pose. Now obviously, tree, you'll see the yogis doing that up here. You don't need to do that today. Come nice and low unless you're a regular practitioner, in which case do whatever tree variant you would like. And I suggest that you take a little energy block, so a chin mudra here, so forefinger and thumb. Just have it out to the side, it helps you with balance as well. And see how you are with your trees. If you're really, really stable here, you can take the hands up as well. So we'll come down the way we came, so bringing the hands down first, lifting the foot out of the way in front of us with control and bringing that down. And we'll do that on the other side. So opening the toes of that standing foot, bending the knee of the leg that's going to come up, lifting that foot up a little, seeing how our balance is here. For those of you for whom this is a real doddle, close your eyes. Everybody else, don't worry. Closing your eyes while balancing is really tricky. All right. So now what we're going to do is we'll take that knee out, and you can keep the toe on the floor, perhaps the heel on the ankle, or lift it up a little. And the knee is going out to the other side this time. So nice, simple tree pose. And I'd say that when I teach beginners, 95% of them are wobbling like crazy at this point. So if you're wobbling, don't worry about it at all. Very, very normal. I just want you to be safe. So even if you're not using it, if you feel a little bit wobbly, just perhaps stand near to a wall or something solid that's going to not wobble over with you. And just use it if you need to. Bring the hand forwards and away. So again, we can take chin mudra if you would like. You can even sway in the breeze if you want. So that was tree, nice and straightforward. Come down the way you came in, foot forward and down. Another little balance. Come back to standing with your feet hip width apart into Tadasana. Hands down the side, shoulders coming down towards the back pockets. And we're going to come up onto our toes. Inhale as you come up. Exhale as you go down. This is remarkably challenging. And down. Inhale up. And down. Inhale up. And down. If you've got that and you're not wobbling, you can bring the hands up as well. Inhale up. And exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Hold it, stretch those hands, try to keep your shoulders away from your ears, and come down again. Good. Another little balance here. If this is all too much, just do a little lower variation on it. So rather than coming right up on the toes really high, come up halfway. So with this one, we're going to come onto one leg. The other, I'll just show, it's easier to show you. Hands up. And we're going to tip to one side. Now, if this is too much for you, just have the toe on the floor still. So it's a nice stretch up the torso, shoulders away from ears. And when you're ready, you can bend over to the side. It's a 5-pointed star. Okay, coming back again. Stretching tall and bringing the hands down. If that's too much for you, literally just come up and down with the hands. all sorts of variants. We're going to go to the other side now. So hands up, put the foot out, toe down, and then lean into the side. So your glutes are working in the standing leg, your core is working. You want to hold your belly in while you're doing these poses. Continuing to breathe. And come back again. And down. Good. So what I want to teach you now is a half sun salutation. So you probably will know or have heard of the full sun salutation sequence. We're not going to do that because it's quite an advanced little move, but we're going to do a really lovely half sun salutation, which is quite sort of therapeutic, really. That incorporates some of the things that we've done and introduce some new things. So again, feet hip width apart. We're going to inhale up, coming into that back bend, maybe bringing the hands together, looking up to the hands. We exhale as we do a swan dive down, so the hands come wide, and we're hinging down at the hips, flying down, bringing the hands down, 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 down towards the ground. And we're just going to hang there for a moment. Now, can you see how I'm not even touching the ground right now? Because I've done no work stretching this area out today. So I've got a few inches still to drop. So I'm just going to let the soft tissue relax, let nature do its work, let gravity do its work. And gradually I will drop down so I can touch the ground, and I'll continue to get lower. Now, for many of you, if you haven't been touching your toes on a regular basis, you will be miles off touching ground. It's not a problem. Hang low as you can get. If you've got blocks, you can come down to the block, but it's not a problem to just let it hang. You can even take your hands to your shins if you'd like. You can have slightly micro bends in the knees if you would like to, and actually, particularly for some people with lower back issues, it's actually much better to do this with a slight micro bend in the knee. So listen to your body and do what your body wants to do. So this is called a forward fold, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to come from this forward fold to a halfway lift, which I'll also refer to as a flat back. So we inhale, and I'm just coming up into having a flat back. Still a slight micro bend in the knees, and my hands are higher up on my shins. Now, for some people, you know, it may be that you're here. I've got one student whose difference between a forward fold and a halfway lift is an inch. That she goes from forward fold to halfway lift. Tiny little amount. For others that are more flexible, we're really low down in the forward fold, and then we're a lot different in the halfway lift. What I want you to look at here is the fact that my back is nice and straight. And I'm looking forwards. I mean, obviously I'm looking at the camera, but I'm looking forwards generally. And then we exhale down again, and then we come back by the beginning. So we open the hands up, hinging our way up, inhaling up into that back bend, hands to prayer, and then exhale the hands down to heart center. So we'll do a few of these. We'll speed them up slightly. But I will cue you, so hopefully, maybe just watch me for a round and then cue. So I'll do a reasonably fast one that you can just watch with me. I'm just going to turn my phone off. It keeps beeping at me, which is not very helpful. Right. So inhaling up into the back bend, swan dive down, hands nice and wide, fingertips down to the floor. Halfway lift, inhaling, looking forwards. Dropping down on an exhale, inhale, opening up into the back bend. Exhale, hands back to heart center. So let's try this all together. Inhaling, opening up into the back bend. Swan dive down on an exhale. Inhale to that halfway lift. Straight back, looking forwards. Exhale, palms down, fingertips down, whatever you can get down. Inhaling up, back bend, hands to heart center. And again, inhaling up, swan dive down, arms nice and wide, fingertips or whatever to the ground. Inhale to halfway lift, shoulders back, looking forwards. Exhale, hands down. Inhale, back up, back bend, and then hands to heart centre on the exhale. I'm just going to do one more round, but I'm literally just going to cue your breath rather than the move itself. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale down. Inhale, back up. Exhale, hands to heart centre. So that is your half sun salutation. Just for your interest, I'll show you what the full sun salutation would look like, and maybe I'll come back another day and do that. So we'll do it from this direction here. Don't do this unless you've done sun salutation before, just watch. But you'll see it's very familiar from the half. So we come down and then into the halfway lift and then down. And then where it changes is here. You take one leg back into a runner's lunge, the other leg comes back and you're now into a plank. You drop your knees down, your hips, keeping the elbows in. Come down into either a baby cobra or half up dog here. Turning around on the toes, coming into a downward dog. We are going to do a downward dog in a minute. You take a couple of breaths here, trying to get your heels to the floor. You could have your knees bent if you want a flat back. And then the right leg comes forward in between the hands, looking forward, picking the left foot up to join the right. And then we're back into the other half of that sun salutation, back up into the back bend and hands to heart centre. So that's your, and you do that on the right and then you do that on the left. So that's how a fuller sun salutation works. But I don't think it's a beginner's move at all. The little half sequence works really nicely. Okay, let's do one of my favourite things, which is a lunge. So we're going to do this as a low lunge, so I'd suggest that you have a blanket or cushion under your knees. What we will do is we'll drop down to the right knee onto your cushion and the left foot forwards. Now, even in just doing this, you will probably feel a stretch down the right, it's a hip flexor muscle. So it's this bit here, okay. Now I want you to make sure that your stance between your standing knee and this left foot is nice and wide, because when we go forwards, I want this knee to stay above the left ankle. It shouldn't be going way over the toes, all right? So this is a low lunge, and it's a great move for stretching these hip flexors, good for releasing some of the muscles that kind of hold the pelvis and the back into position. So just see how this feels. You may want to go forwards and back, forwards and back. Those of you that have been doing yoga a while that want to do this as a standing pose, if you want to stretch yourself, you can do so, but I'm keeping it at beginner level here. And you'll see that the top of my back foot is down on the floor. If you really want to have your toes to give you a little bit more stability, you can do so, but normally you have it like this. Okay, so you can either stay like this with your hands on your knees, or you can bring the hands up above the head and look up between the hands. So you've got a slight back bend happening here, shoulders away from ears, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. We're going to do a little twist here. So I'm assuming your left foot is the one that's forward. So your right hand is going to come over your left knee. So first of all, we inhale, and then we twist. Right hand over the left knee, left hand comes behind the back. So you see how I'm still standing nice and tall here. I'm going to look over my left shoulder. I'm twisting the spine. Nothing too drastic. A lovely, lovely stretch and twist. We're going to come back a little bit where we came in, so inhale up. You may even want to come and bring your hands forwards. and coming back up, nice and high. Look up, maybe come into more of a back bend if that flexibility is with you. Coming back tall and bringing the hands down, and we'll do all of that on the other side. So left knee down on the ground or on your cushion, right foot coming forward. So you can see here, this is where my stretch is happening. Make sure that stance is nice and wide. You can be quite wide on the mat if you are finding the stability here quite tricky. So, so rather than having one foot in front of the knee, I'm likely to fall over like that. I can have quite a nice wide stance. And if you were teaching, say, pregnancy yoga, where the lady's got, you know, her baby here, you would have a very, very wide stance here. So some of you that might be carrying a little bit of excess weight might prefer to have your foot a little bit further, just whatever feels right for you. Okay, so let's move forwards and back. See how this little muscle is feeling here. Remember, those of you that have been doing yoga a while might want to come up into a standing pose around about now. Let's bring the hands up, looking up. Inhaling, exhaling, shoulders away from ears. And now we're going to take the left hand over the right knee, and the right hand is going to come around the back. So inhale first, and exhale into your twist. Making sure the back is nice and straight again, chin is tucked, and I'm looking over my right shoulder if that's comfortable for you. Coming back the way you came in. Inhale, slight back bend more if you like. Let's come forwards with the hands again. Inhaling up and bringing the hands down. Good. So I promised you a downward dog, so that's where we're going to go now. If you've got a couple of blocks, you may want to have them. But if you haven't got them, don't worry about it. We can do some variations. So first of all, into that tabletop position that we know about already, but I've got my toes tucked under because I'm ready to go into dog. So hands probably slightly in front of your shoulders, maybe a little bit wider than the shoulders as well. And we're just going to hinge up by, I'm literally just lifting my knees off the ground, all right? Keeping my head where I am, knees just off the ground and then down again, off and down. You can play with a hover here if you want. It will really help to strengthen your quad muscles. But what we're doing here is going from what I call the hairpin, keeping the head straight and still, and lifting the hips up into a downward dog. Now, let's just have our knees bent to begin with here. This is quite a strong pose. It's an inversion, which means that my heart is above my head. So perhaps not for people that have heart issues or have high or low blood pressure that's not controlled. But you can walk this out, so just bending one knee and the other. If you've got blocks, this can feel lovely. Come up on the blocks with your hands. Instantly, I've got my heels much closer to the ground. And again, you can walk this out. Rid of those. So in a downward dog, we got our fingers nice and wide, but we're trying not to dump down into our wrists. So try and sort of grip the mat with the forefinger and the thumb, and pushing back towards your heels. Most of you will not get your heels on the ground. So we're going to come from this into a position called pigeon. It's quite tricky to get into, so pay attention. My right knee is going to come behind my right wrist, like this. And then my right foot is going to come over to the side, so that's coming towards my left wrist. All right, so just see if you can get into that position now. Right knee behind right wrist, right foot somewhere behind the left wrist. And then the back leg, just let that slide down, slide down, slide down. Then once it's down there, let the foot rest, top of the foot down. And we are into, it's called half king pigeon. So, alignment. We want to be square on the mat, which means that my hips are kind of in alignment, are square with the short edge of my mat. I'm feeling this across my right buttocks, so this is my right glutes that I'm feeling this in. Now, if this is too much for your knee, you might want this right foot to actually just come kind of under the groin a little bit more, and that may be more comfortable for you. For those of you that have dodgy knees, can I suggest that you do something entirely different? Those of you that are in pigeon, just stay where you are. But for those of you whose knees are just not wanting you to do this, come over onto your back and we do a reverse pigeon. So have both of your knees up, pick your right foot and put it over your left knee. Just turn around so you can see this a little bit more. Then take the right hand inside that little triangle you've created and around the back of the left leg, you just pull that left leg towards you, pushing the right knee away, and you're in reverse pigeon. You have probably done this at various exercise classes over the years. So that's the version of pigeon if your knees are not liking this one here. So I know you've been in this a long time. I hold this for 20 minutes sometimes, so you know, it's perfectly doable. So we're going to come out of this. We're going to come out the way we came in. If you're on the floor, you just want to go around the other way, so you put the other leg up. But if we're doing it like this, we're going to go into our downward dog first. So first of all, hands nice and wide, picking the back knee up, so your toes are tucked under now, and bringing that right foot back so that we're back into downward dog. Walk that out a moment. And now we're going to take the left knee to behind the left wrist. You got that all right? And then the left foot comes somewhere to behind the right wrist. I mean, I'm miles away from my wrist, but I mean, I'm on that trajectory. Or you can just have that foot, that heel kind of coming somewhere into your groin, if that's more comfortable. Dropping the back knee down and just walking that foot back, making sure your hips are square with the front edge of the mat. And we're just looking forwards. Now, if you've been doing yoga a while, you know probably that you can come down onto your elbows or your forehead in pigeon. But it's a really good stretch when you're sitting up like this anyway. So stay where you are if you're comfortable with this. If you need help getting into the reverse pigeon again, here we go. Left foot up on the right knee, make that triangle. Left hand comes through the triangle, finding the right hand behind the right thigh and pull that right leg towards you while letting this left knee come out. Front my way back. Into pigeon. This is one of my favourite yoga poses. And as someone that's had back issues, the combination of doing lunges and pigeon are so good for me, as well as the hamstring stretches, which we've done a few more today as well. Good. So we're going to come to the floor now. So I invite you to come out of this. If you're with me, sit down on your left buttock, swing the right foot forwards, and we are just going to lay on our backs. Right. So hands either side, bringing the feet towards you, so your heels are towards your buttocks, and I simply want you to windscreen wiper from one side to the other. Inhale up, exhale down. The breath becomes quite natural after you've done this for a while. Breathing in and out again through your nose. I'm doing a few of these, and the next time you come over to the right, hold the knees down to your right. You may want to put a block under the bottom knee if you're way off the ground here. And if you're feeling like it, you can turn your head away from your knees and look over the left hand. So it's a gentle stretch, a gentle twist. Inhaling back up to the centre again, and then exhale down to the other side. Then again, your head can look over to the right, looking over your right hand. Good. Inhaling back up to the centre. We can do a little pose called Happy Baby now. This isn't very elegant looking. You bring your knees up towards you. You may want to just hug them in a moment, maybe just rock them side to side. And if you find your Happy Baby difficult, you can just come into this pose and rock and hug. You might want to lift your head up, keep your shoulders back. So with Happy Baby, we put our feet up above us, taking your hands in between your knees, and you grab either your big toes or the outside edge of the feet, keeping your head on the floor if you can, and then your elbows are coming, your knees are coming into your shoulder blades, sort of almost into your armpits really, and then the soles of your feet are up towards the ceiling as if you're going to walk on the ceiling. And this is Happy Baby. Not very elegant, but it is a very nice pose for stretching the back out. So just go through the alignment and things here. You've got your hands either around your big toes or the outer edges of your feet. Your knees are going in towards your armpits. The soles of your feet are going up towards the ceiling and your head is on the floor. And we just let that all hang loose. Good. Dropping that down. And now I want you to put the soles of your feet together and drop your feet towards the floor. So I'm sitting in a sort of diamond shape here. I'm lying in a diamond shape here. I've got the soles of my feet together. I've got my knees coming out and opening my hips out, bringing my hands out to the side. Inhaling and exhaling. So this position is called Baddha Konasana. It's a really lovely, comfortable pose. If you have a block and you want to lift yourself up a tad, it can be quite nice to put this under your sacrum. It's not necessary, not essential, just giving you some options if you have to have some props around. So that opens up this area here. We're now going to do the banana asana. So bringing your knees together, stretch your feet out tall and your hands out nice and tall as well. So you're nice and long along the mat. And then what I'd like you to do is walk your feet towards the left and your hands towards the left. So we're in a banana shape or a C shape on the ground. Now, if that's enough for you, that is fine. If you want to go a little bit further, you can lift your right foot over your left ankle. I actually don't like doing it. My back doesn't like it, so I'm not going to do that for long. And what you can do is pick up your right wrist with your left hand, and that will further stretch you in this nice banana shape. Stretching back up into the nice tall thin shape, and then walking your feet across to the right, hands across to the right. You can grab your left wrist with your right hand. You can pick your left foot and put it over your right ankle if you'd like. You should be feeling a nice strong stretch. Coming back into a nice long stretch here, final body stretch. And we are moving into some gentle breath awareness and Shavasana, which is the nice lying down bit at the end of the class. So if you're feeling a little bit cold, you might want to put socks on or a blanket or something like that. You may want to put something under your head. I'm going to actually sit up for this because I want to talk you through it. But make yourself comfortable lying down on the mat. Of course, if you prefer to sit cross-legged and sit up, then you are welcome. If you need to put a cushion or something under your knees, if you're lying down, that can help to you've got a kind of crunchy lower back. So hopefully you're nice and comfortable now. And to invite you to just put your hand on your belly, or to your side ribs, or to your heart and your belly, whatever feels comfortable. If you prefer to just have your hands to your side, you can. And we're going to come back to that breath awareness. So inhaling for a count of 4. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, let the belly rise, pause for a moment, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause on the exhale. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to leave you to do that in your own time. It can be helpful to count with that inhale and exhale. You can have a longer pause if you like. We sometimes teach a square breath where you inhale for the count, you hold for the count, exhale for the count, hold for the count. If you're familiar with that pranayama square, you may choose to follow that breath pattern there. Otherwise, inhaling and exhaling, focusing particularly on the out breath and perhaps extending the out breath. And be mindful of the breath still. Scan through the body and check that you are as relaxed as you can be. Relaxing your feet, your calves, your knees, the thighs, the hips, the lower back, the upper back, the shoulders and collarbones, the fingers, hands, wrists, forearms, elbows, upper arms, back to the shoulders. Let them sink into the mat, the neck, the jaw. Relax your cheeks, the forehead, the eyes. Pay particular attention to the forehead and eyes and let them sink. Top of your head, the back of your head, sinking into the mat. You can breathe normally, in and out through the nose, sinking into the mat. Bring your awareness back to the sounds around you. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. Perhaps take a slightly deeper breaths. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Perhaps hug your knees in towards you. Maybe move your head slowly from one side to the other. Do whatever you want to do to wake your body up. And when you're ready, very, very slowly, turn with control to one side. You can just lie there for a breath or two if you'd like. And then come back to a seated position. Try and keep your eyes closed if you can, or a downward gaze. And when you're sitting again, Try and have your posture nice and tall. Perhaps think back to how you felt at the beginning of class. Do you feel a little easier in your body now? And how do you feel in your mind? Do you feel a little more relaxed? We're going to finish the class with a breath together. So we'll take the hands to heart center, to Namaste. We'll inhale as we circle the hands round and up above the head to Namaste, above the head, and then exhale, hands back down to heart center, and we'll do that one more time. Inhaling, circling out and round and up, hands up to heart center, exhaling the hands down. So the hands are coming down to heart center here. Take a breath in. You might want to take the hands to the forehead, to the eyebrow center, and we'll say Namaste together. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining my practice today. My website's mariepageyoga.com. There are a few free classes there, and there's Zoom classes at the moment. Goodness knows what's going to happen going forwards. I'm currently teaching in lockdown, but it's lovely to have you with me. If you've got any questions, do connect with me over on the website or through the site you're watching this video with now. All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye then.